Well, we are in the perfect place to talk about creativity, your studio. So I kind of want to share with you some of the research, what they say, how they define creativity. Basically bringing something new and novel into existence that didn't exist before. And it is of value to society, either because it's beautiful or it solves a problem or it sends us into outer space, But other researchers have added to that, and I was kind of wondering what you thought about this. They say creativity is an attitude to accept change and newness, be able to play with multiple ideas and possibilities, be flexible, and have an attitude of being able to accept the good but being willing to change it if it's not working. So does any of those things ring a bell with you when you think of creativity?
Yeah, I think that really runs very parallel to the way that I think. And of course, I'm very experimental with my work. I've worked in a lot of different areas, from painting, sculpture, mixed media, performance. I've been working for a number of years with these short films that you've seen some of them, and basically I think that's the one thing is I like looking at other works. I like I've been to the biennales, some of that sort of stuff, and in Europe, and I like how artists push the boundaries of things. It opens up other ideas, and then in sharing it with other people, they expand on those ideas and basically bring things to the table that other people can grasp onto. And I think that was the intentions of the book. Keep an eye on your soul was to allow people to express themselves and then share it with other people's ideas and kind of weave together, because we are all woven together anyway, our ideas. And I think that's what I find is really interesting about art.
Well, when you talk about the flexibility and having that open attitude, does that happen with you? Do you start out wanting to paint something and then end up with something completely different than where you thought you were headed, or
both?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll start with something like if you saw the development of this painting that's still in the process. It's been 20 different paintings. Although, periodically, like sometimes I'll try to start something that's more literal, but usually it evolves just by interacting with it, and I may go through a lot of processes before I feel that it's done. Sometimes I have other artists come and go, I really like what you did, but it won't even look like that. In fact, that's what happened with this piece. It's like been going on for weeks, and it's not resolved yet, but that's part of the process. And then also it can be anything from your thought to the light. You get different light in here. You come and look at this in the later part of the day. Well, something doesn't look. It's all very changes. So.
And what about if? Do you ever change? Like, do you ever come back and think, I don't feel that way anymore?
Oh, yeah. In fact, the painting that's over there, that's on the cover of the book, the other day I had it out here because we're doing a film related to it with somebody, and I was looking at it, and I almost went over and started, but it's been published and printed. You can't, it's just what it is.
Right.
So I don't, I usually what happens when I have things around, I might have been working on painting for years, and all of a sudden I see something else and I go do it. It's very spontaneous the way that I work. So the painting, in a sense, is never really resolved. It's just you're just kind of doing. But I get them to a particular point, and then I either go to a gallery or to show, or it might go into my storage for a while. That's.
Well, I think what's interesting is when you think about. I really like that idea about being flexible, because it made me think about being adaptable, and everything that makes us kind of human, a higher order thinking species, is that ability to change and to adapt to things. That there's kind of the neuroscience behind that's what makes us who we are. And so I think that kind of leads into, it's sort of like a higher cognitive function. So there's always been this kind of feeling around artists that you have to be a genius to be an artist. So I have to ask you if you're a genius. It's something I've never asked you. It keeps me awake at night.
I would say that depends on how you define genius. Maybe I'm sure my mother thought I was, but I think everybody's going to tell it. But basically, I think for me, like the one thing, I think everybody has the ability to do art, and it's real interesting. I have an etching presses, a couple etching presses here, as you know, and sometimes I've had people come. I had a group of people come from. I had a museum show in Mexico, and I had the museum director and another 2 artists, and the museum director's wife came, and we all did work on this huge etching press. We were mixing around and doing stuff, and actually, the wife that had never really, of the museum director, she did some of the most unusual, fantastic things compared to, and the other 2 people were well-known artists from Mexico. And everybody was pretty astounded with what she had produced. So, and then like a lot of times I hear people like, well, my mom had come down here and she was very intimidated to try to do some artwork, and she got into doing these monoprints, and some of the stuff turned out fantastic. And once she got into it, just freed her up to where she just felt, hey, this is great, and got into it. But what happens oftentimes, I think, in traditional painting, like kids go to school, and when they're real young, they're doing artwork, and they're real free and all, and then pretty soon, people are trying to push them into a box, and then the next thing you know, little Susie over here really can do, something that's more representational, and then the creativity is kind of squelched. So I think, if you look at it, from the standpoint of we all have abilities to create, and if we keep pushing it, whatever you're creating is going to get better and better if you think like that. And that's what I really like. I really enjoy about producing art and working with other artists, collaborating, and that's what it's about.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up children, because one of the articles that we're reading in the course is called The Creativity Crisis, and over the last few decades, when they've been measuring IQ, mental IQ, it has slowly been rising, because we have enriched environments or whatever. But at the same time, the creativity quotient was also rising until about the 1990s, when the IQ still started to rise, but the creativity quotient started declining. So there's a lot of speculation of why that is. You sound like you're kind of saying that it is something that needs to be nurtured. There's also speculation that that's when the rise of technology and video games and that sort of thing kind of entered our culture, especially for children.
Yeah, I think in a way, like, of course, when I was young, we had to create almost our own toys, our own ideas. We'd have to go out and create things. So whether it be a little birdhouse in the back, we'd be building a birdhouse or a tree fort or whatever it was, or we'd be creating our own toys. We didn't have a lot of money. We did things. Where now it's like everything's moving so fast. It's we live in the information age, and people are trying to learn how to play this game, and another one comes along and squelches that, and they're on to the next thing. So I think what happens, so much information is being shoved at people that they don't even have time to even think about things, and I think that's I think it's important. And in a little bit of way, one of the reasons for creating the book also had to do with let's not really forget who we really are, and just get caught up in this manipulation of media and everything else. I think that's important.
Right. Do you have anything that you do to put you into that that zone, I guess? Do you take time to, I don't know, go be by yourself, or?
Well,
how does that work?
I do a little bit of that. Of course, on the property here where we have 4 acres, I have little places that I've built where I'll go sit and I might write or think. I do a lot of keeping notes and jotting down things. If something comes to me, I type it out, or I draw a little something. I'll do little sketches. So I'm always developing things, and I really do that a lot at night, and it can change a lot. I'll write something, and then the next morning I put it down, and 2 days later something else comes to me. So everything's evolving all the time, and I found after doing this for 20-25 years, it's part of my process of creating works of art.
So would you recommend that to people, to maybe carry a little notebook or a little journal, and when something comes to mind,
Yeah, I
jot
think,
it down.
I think it's a really good thing, especially if you're focusing on, I don't know, I've also written a number of books and things, so like what happens to me, it really helps me. I'm thinking, I'm in the process of creating all the time with what I'm doing. So I'll write like little notes, like last night, I thought about some of the things that we're going to address today. So, so I didn't really go back over stuff that I had written, but I was thinking all the time, well, what are we going to address? And I think it's what happens with me is sometimes I get ideas and I think they're good, and I'll write it down. If I don't write it down, then and it passes, then I figure, well, it wasn't worth writing down, sort of thing. But sometimes I'll have something and I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking about it, and I'll come down and do something. Whether it's welded sculpture or whatever I'm doing. It's like I'm living in the process. And of course, working every day here and having a place where I'm away, I'm not really being confronted by cars coming by, and although I do have quite a few people that come here, but it's